And we're just going to take a moment just to get centered. And all that means is something quite simple, which is to pay attention to our body. So just taking a moment, feeling into your body without judgment. You might notice tension, something might come up. And we're just going to say 3 things. What is my breath like? It is a curious inquiry. What is my breath like? Am I holding my breath? What is the quality of my breath? Where do I feel it? Just exploring your breath for a moment. And then we're going to ask, is there anywhere where I can feel a bit more ease? Is there anywhere in my body where I can feel a bit more ease? Is there anywhere that I can let go of a little bit? And then we're going to ask, can I be a little more in my back? Can I be more in my support system right now, in this moment? So you might be familiar with the phrase, the power of pause. This is something that is crucial because what we're working with here when we're trying to change our posture, you can do as many exercises as you want, but to implement that into your daily life, we have to change our habits. And so how do we change our habits? Well, you've heard about the power of pause before. Pause is very close to inhibition, which we'll talk about a little bit more, but I want to start with pause because everybody knows what pause is. Pause is an opportunity for change. Because what we're dealing with habits is stimulus and response. So your phone rings, you immediately pick it up without thinking of what you just did with your body, right? You start doing something at the computer without thinking. You do a lot of things in your day without being mindful because we're used to doing it all the time. But the reason that you're here today is that you're interested in changing and evolving a bit and improving your posture. So pausing is the way that you can start taking a little bit more control over these automatic or unconscious ways of being. So a very simple example that we're going to work on today is sitting and standing. And the chair work in the Alexander technique, which we're going to do today as our procedure, is a microcosm for all of your habits. So you'll find if you pull from your neck, you're going to do it in sitting. If you hold your breath, you might do that. If you sink into your hips, if you lock your knees, if you let your shoulders go, you'll notice that these are things that will also happen when you go to sit and stand. So pausing is stopping right before you sit, taking that moment of choice and saying, oh, I'm not going to hold my breath. I'm not going to tighten my jaw. I'm not going to make myself heavy. I am going to be present in the sitting. Because guess what? You're going to land differently. A lot of people sit, and then once they've already sat, they try to adjust their posture from there. But what we're working with here in the Alexander technique is the root of the habit. And if we can get to before the domino effect, that's how we start changing. And then the next thing you know, it takes a little time, just like anything, practice, but you're sitting differently and you're landing differently and your posture is already different. So pausing is the simple act of stopping before responding to a stimulus. So A good exercise for this week for you to practice the power of pause is I'd like you, when your phone, the text goes off, try to not react. See what happens in your body, and then make a conscious choice to pick up the phone and remember to breathe. So that would be a good exercise because we have a lot of automatic reactions when our phone goes off. So pausing is very close to what inhibition is, okay? And pausing allows us to direct. And directing is simply to give a direction, such as, I am not going to hold my breath. I'm going to lengthen. I'm going to widen. I'm going to think of myself as light in this moment. The instructions we give ourselves, the things we tell ourselves, have a direct effect. I could tell someone, okay, you're under a lot of pressure, and I can start to see it in their body, you know? So one of the things we're going to learn about is the kind of directions that we're going to give ourselves. And there are specific Alexander Technique directions. But first, you have to not be going into your automatic habit, right? So pausing is to just stop and think. Inhibition is a little different. Inhibition is a little bit more in motion. So for example, when I go to sit, as I'm in motion, I am inhibiting some habits and allowing some other ones. So it's a little bit more in process rather than just the stimulus, the pause, and the response. Inhibition is more dynamic. It is happening as you're doing a thing. So if I'm performing, for example, I'm inhibiting my desire perhaps to look at the band behind me because I want to stay engaged with the audience. That would be an example. As I'm going to type on the computer, I'm inhibiting my habit to start coming forward and forward and forward. I'm directing myself to be light and up. So the relationship between inhibition and direction is really crucial in the Alexander Technique because they work in tandem. So the directions in Alexander Technique are these, and then we're going to go into sitting in a moment. So the directions are: let the neck be free. Let's go ahead and feel what that might feel like in your body. Or some people say free the neck. Let the neck be free to let the head go forward and up. We'll talk about that in a moment. Probably the hardest direction. To let the back lengthen and widen. And the knees release out and away from the hips. So this will be in the document that I send you. And you'll see in sitting what we mean by that. But real quick, I wanted to talk about this direction in particular about let the neck be free, to let the head go forward and up. So we're going to be looking at this kind of relationship of allowing the body to be in neutral rather than trying to relax it. And here's why. I very rarely use the term relax because oftentimes for a lot of people, that means collapse. And so a lot of people go from tension to collapse. So what we're finding here is a balance and a buoyancy in neutral. And this is what we're talking about when we talk about the neck being free. The issue is that when you are slouching, many people are very focused on the shoulders. They think it's coming from the shoulders and they try to adjust it from the shoulders. But the reality is, if your neck is poised simply atop your spine, you can't slouch. Go ahead and try to slouch without changing the relationship of your neck In other words, if you watch very carefully with me, I can't move my shoulders. I can't slouch my shoulders without, see what's happening here with my neck? I'm pulling the head back and down. This is what Alexander called back and down, like so. Okay. So when we say forward and up, it's the opposite of back and down, which is to say whoop, up like so. Okay. Releasing up and forward. Sitting and standing is something that you do repeatedly, constantly throughout the day, after day after day. So this is a place where you will get wear and tear if you have certain patterns of tension. The first thing I'm going to show you is a very common habit. So what is happening here is that I am pulling the head back and down to sit. So you'll say like, well, why can't I do that? You know, because what's happening is I'm having to use my shoulders a lot. And it turns out I don't really need to use my shoulders so much. So what does it look like if I weren't to do this pulling back thing? We are very motivated by what we see. Watch my line of vision here as I go to sit. I'm looking down where I'm going. Oh my gosh, I'm looking where I'm going. Okay. And when that happens, that means my head just stays easily atop my shoulders. And you can put a hand on the top of your head and a hand here on your chin. That can help, or a hand on the back of your head. You can experiment with that. So if I leave my head poised atop my spine, if I leave my neck alone and I don't pull, if I leave my ear over my shoulder over my rib cage over my hips, I'm simply doing this. I'm leaving everything together, okay? And then I come to stand. So what isn't happening is that you're not doing anything extra with your neck, you're not doing anything extra with your shoulders, your jaw, you're not making your head heavy. All this stays aligned, okay? And it all stays aligned within the support structure of your entire spine, your entire torso, okay? So what is happening here is that the hips swing back and the knees bend. Can you trust your spine to support you? Can you leave your whole torso together so that the motion, all it is that the knees bend and the hips swing back and the whole torso stays together. Another common habit, which is to overarch the lower back, which we're going to look at now. Watch yourself, feel yourself here. What does it feel like to leave my whole, again, leaving the whole torso together? Head over the shoulders, ear over the shoulders, shoulders over the rib cage over the hips. So coming forward, see what happens and come back. So if this happens, okay, we don't want to do that. So we're going to leave this all together. What does that feel like? Here I am. I'm just at that moment feeling like I want to stand. I'm going to let my legs engage. I'm just going to pop on up. Here I am. So what that looks like on the way down is if I were to overarch the lower back, it looks like this. And that's pretty common too. And especially for people that have knee issues. They're a little worried about bending the knees, so they're compensating with the lower back. Okay, so it looks like this. Oh shoot, I don't want to bend my knees. I'm gonna do this. We want to think about our directions, which is that our neck is free. Neck is nice and easy. We're not going to hike the shoulders up. We're not going to let them disengage. We're going to leave it all together. But at the same time, we're also thinking of the whole body. So I like the visual of a lightning bolt. And what we're working with here is counterbalance, okay? We have to carry the head. The head is really our major heaviness. It's a heavy, heavy thing. And the further the head is from the support system, the harder it is on the neck and shoulders. Head over the shoulder, shoulders over the rib cage over the hips. So what's the counterbalance when we go to sit or we just go to bend? The knees bend and the hips go away. So what we have here is, see how my head is being balanced by my knees. So if I'm not bending my knees enough, which is often the first reaction, a fear reaction. Oh my God, I don't want to fall. I'm going to hold my knees. Then we're not getting the counterbalance. Or some people really sink into their hips a little bit, so it's hard for them to let the hips go back. So that's the counterbalance. And what this means is if there's no chair behind me, like right now, I'm not worried about falling because I have all the counterbalances in place. And this is just physics, really. So, see? Okay, there's no chair. I'm just going to go into a squat. I want to talk a little bit more about the hips because a lot of us have this thing where we kind of lock into the hips and we lock the knees. And so I see even with people with standing desks that they're doing this, kind of sinking in here. So as you stand here, and just practice standing for a moment, I want you to give yourself a little bit of space to think about the hips and the sacrum and the lower back and the knees. And just have the thought that you're letting them be. And you're going to breathe into your lower rib cage. You're just going to let the rib cage come back and over the hips. So I'm going to exaggerate a little bit. Let's say I'm here, breathing. So head over the shoulders, neck nice and easy. What F.M. Alexander used to say is, if you stop doing the wrong thing, the right thing will do itself. And this is how the Alexander technique is a sneaky strengthening and an indirect procedure. My back has become very strong. My quads were super sore my first year of training, even though people don't think about it as a strengthening technique. But it's because if you learn not to disengage certain muscles, you are engaging them more. If you learn not to over-engage certain muscles, you are giving a chance to the muscles that haven't had a chance to engage. They get a chance to engage. So it's through this indirect procedure, it's through this, like we talked about, this non-doing, this inhibition. By inhibiting my tendency to collapse here, I'm allowing my latissimus and these bigger extensor back muscles to stay engaged. And every day that I'm doing that, I'm strengthening it. So that's beautiful rhythm. It's a really natural way to lengthen and strengthen. So I'm going to leave you with one exercise that you can do now that you've kind of covered the ground of sitting and standing and the physics of sitting and standing, remembering that in order to change our posture, we do need to pause before you sit. Just give yourself a thought. Don't go straight into your habit. Don't start the habit pattern. See this week if you can put a little note and say, pause, breathe, direct before you sit, and see what happens. So the forward fold is pretty simple and it's going to feel really nice. It's just a way to reset the neuromuscular system. You're just going to look straight ahead. Go ahead and make sure you feel like you're in your sit bones, you're back in your back. Take a couple breaths. Don't rush it. Let yourself look down. And make sure your feet are hip width apart and maybe a little bit farther forward so that you can really secure yourself here. And I like to also add that your hands are here, but you're going to watch them kind of lightly fall. And this will help you also not push into your wrists. So we're just going to release here and let everything go. And as you're down here, as you're down there, you're going to feel different things. Some people feel a big stretch in their neck. Some people feel a big stretch in the lower back. This is going to give you information. So for me today, I was really feeling it in my hips, which means, I think I'm holding a lot in my hips this week. So we're going to let that all go. And then as you're down there, you're going to ask yourself, is there any more that I can let go of? Is there any more ease I can find? And you're going to make sure you're breathing. Okay. So I'm down here. Going to close my eyes. And then I'm going to find my cheeks with the back of my hands. And the reason I'm doing that is that it's going to start to engage the shoulder blades here. Okay. Because we're going to now go into activation. Relax, activate. Release, activate. Okay, so watch this part carefully. Releasing. And notice I'm not doing anything with my neck. Just going to bring my hands to my cheeks. I'm going to start to look up, extending through my back. And then here I am. And you will find that it's a bit easier to be upright. You really want to make sure that, again, that you're releasing like so. So not doing this. Yes, doing this. Okay, so that's the other common thing. The other thing is if I'm pushing from my legs and I'm bouncing up from my legs, I didn't give my back a chance to work. We want the back to work. So make sure you're not pushing from your legs, you're not pulling from your neck, and that way your whole extensors can work. So just to review this procedure. Hands to the cheeks, nice and easy here. Looking up to extend. This is extending down and the top of my spine is extending. Ears are over the shoulders. And then here I am. And make sure you come all the way up. Some people get stuck about here, so make sure you come all the way up. If you're finding you're not coming all the way up, go ahead and look up, reach back. That's just to ensure that you really activate the spine. So to review, you're going to start getting really in touch with the support of your back. The Alexander technique is all about letting your back and your core support you and not doing all the extra things we do. The Alexander technique is about getting out of your own way rather than trying to do something harder, trying to straighten up, trying to fix something. We are becoming aware in process. And the beauty of inhibition and direction is realizing that if we become more mindful in our movements, we will notice more habits that we would like to let go of. My last message to you today is, as you're discovering this work and discovering things about yourself, and as things that were unconscious before come up to the surface, I want you to celebrate that. In other words, I know a lot of people that will come out of a session, they feel like they got themselves going in a good way and they're using themselves well, as we say in Alexander Technique, to use yourself. And they're like, I'm using myself well. And then they notice, oh, I did this thing. Fuck, I messed it all up. And they self-punish. I really want to encourage you, as you are on this journey, and you've probably already started this journey considering you found me at all, or the Alexander Technique. Maybe you're already studying the Alexander Technique. Maybe you're an Alexander Technique teacher, for all I know. But this concept of compassion for yourself and realizing that there is never going to be a time that you will be free of all stress. You know, it's like if you go to therapy and you learn how to manage your anxiety and manage your depression and manage flare-ups, and now you have the tools where you don't do the thing as much and you're doing better. It's not like you can just spray paint yourself and stay in one state at all times. Okay, now I found it, I'm holding on to it, and then I'm mad if I lose it. I would like you to let go of this idea of losing something. You have it. You have it.